Hey students, welcome to another chemistry lesson, and today we are going to talk about chemical formula, how to write chemical formula, the proper chemical formula. And remember, writing chemical formula is important because without the correct chemical formula, then you cannot be able to write the correct chemical equation, and also you cannot balance a chemical equation. So remember that this lesson is very important, so take a pen and walk with me through this lesson. I'm going to give you some examples of chemical formula, and if I give you 10 examples, I think that will be enough, that will be adequate for your understanding, and you can go and research more regarding chemical formula and you can be able to do more questions on the same. I'm going to give you examples of chemical formula, but before that I want you to remember what we discussed in our last lesson, valency. Now we said that valency is the number of electrons an atom loses or gains during a chemical reaction, and this one is the combining power of an element. Now you are going to use the combining power of an element to write chemical formula. In other words, you are going to use the valency to write chemical formula. You cannot write chemical formula, you cannot write correct chemical formula without knowing the valency of the ion or the radical that you're going to use. Now, let us write the chemical formula of calcium sulphide. Now remember, calcium is atomic number 20, it loses 2 electrons. Now therefore the valency of calcium is 2. And the oxidation number is positive 2. And sulphide is number 16, therefore 286, it gains 2 electrons. Now a sulphide ion has a valency of 2 and oxidation number minus 2. Now, so therefore, given that calcium has a valency of plus 2 and sulphide minus 2, you interchange the valency when writing chemical formula. Very important, you have to swap the valencies. Now when you swap 2 and 2, you get calcium sulphide with 2 and 2, 2 calciums and 2 sulphide ions. But because they are equal, they are 2 against 2, that is like a ratio 1 to 1. So you ignore the 2. You ignore the 2 and the 2. So calcium sulphate is Ca, calcium sulphide, with no numbers because you ignore the 2 and the 2 because that is a ratio of 1 to 1. Now let us write the chemical formula for zinc carbonate. Now zinc has a valency of 2, oxidation number positive 2, and the carbonate radical has a valency of 2 minus 2. Therefore, when you're writing zinc carbonate, the formula is going to be zinc carbonate. You swap the valencies, 2 goes to sodium and 2 goes to carbonate. Therefore, you ignore the 2 and the 2. So zinc carbonate is zinc ZnCO3 with nothing, no numbers in between. You have to ignore the 2 and you have to ignore the other 2. Now let us write the chemical formula for copper phosphate. Copper phosphate. Now remember, copper has 2 oxidation states, copper 1 and copper 2. Now in this case, I'm going to use copper 2. We're going to write copper 2 phosphate. And copper 2 has a valency of 2 and phosphate has a valency of 3, minus 3. Because the phosphate radical is PO4 negative 3. The oxidation number is negative 3. Therefore, copper is 2 and phosphate is 3. When you swap the valencies, you get copper 3 and phosphate 2. So you have to use a bracket for phosphate because it's not one atom, it is 2 atoms, phosphorus and oxygen. So that phosphate radical, you put it in brackets and then 2. So copper phosphate is Cu3 PO4 in brackets 2. So you swap the valencies and you get 3 and 2. Very, very important. Remember to use the brackets anytime you are bracketing a radical with a number greater than 1. Let us write the chemical formula for magnesium hydrogen carbonate. Now remember, magnesium has a valency of 2 And the hydrogen carbonate radical, which is also called bicarbonate radical, HCO3 -1. The valence is 1, -1. So when you swap the valences, when you interchange these two valences, you get 2 going to hydrogen carbonate and 1 going to magnesium, and you ignore 1 and you remain with 2 and you bracket hydrogen carbonate. So the chemical formula is Mg bracket HCO3 bracket 2. You have to bracket the hydrogen carbonate radical. It should be in brackets. Now let's move on and write the chemical formula for aluminium hydroxide. Remember, aluminium has a valency of 3. It has a valency of 3 and oxidation number positive 3. And hydroxide has hydroxide has a valency of 1 and oxidation number -1. So therefore, if you swap the two valencies, you are going to get aluminium hydroxide. It is aluminium OH in brackets 3. Very simple for that case, because we just interchange 3 and 1 and you ignore 1. Very, very important. Now, in our last class, I gave you the example of sodium carbonate, and I want us to do it again. Now, sodium carbonate. Sodium has a valency of 1 and the carbonate radical has a valency of 2. When you interchange the two numbers, you swap 2 and 1, you get sodium carbonate as Na2CO3. Very, very important. Most students write sodium carbonate and they forget to put that 2 in between there, because that 2 comes from carbonate. It is the valency of the carbonate radical. Remember, when writing chemical formula, you interchange the valencies, you swap the valencies. Very, very important. And that is the chemical formula for sodium carbonate. Now let us write the chemical formula for sodium oxide. Sodium oxide. Remember, the chemical symbol for sodium is Na, not SO, as some of you write it. Some students write sodium as SO, which is wrong. There is no chemical element with such kind of chemical symbol. So for sodium oxide, the valency of sodium is 1, and oxide from oxygen, the valency of an oxide ion is -2. When you swap the valencies, you get sodium oxide as Na2O. Remember, that 2 comes from the oxide ion. Now let us write the chemical formula for sodium sulphide. Sodium sulphide. Now sodium has a valency of 1. We have seen that one in the above example. Sulphide ion, the sulphide ion from sulfur. Sulfur gains 2 electrons, therefore the sulphide ion has a valency of 2 and oxidation state -2. Now sodium sulphide therefore is written as Na2S. You have to interchange the valencies, and that 2 comes from sulphide. So in between we have 2, and sodium sulphide is Na2S. Very, very important. Let us write the chemical symbol for aluminium chloride. Aluminium chloride. Now, aluminium has a valency of 3, and chloride from chlorine has a valency of 1. Remember, chlorine gains 1 electron, therefore the oxidation number of a chloride ion is -1. So therefore, when you interchange the valencies, aluminium 3 chloride is written as AlCl3 with a 3, and that 3 comes from aluminium, the valence of aluminium. Very, very important. Most students don't remember to put that 3 there when they are writing the chemical formula for aluminium chloride. Remember, that should be represented as aluminium chloride with aluminium Cl3. It should appear there. Let us write now the chemical formula of magnesium hydroxide. Magnesium hydroxide. Now, magnesium hydroxide, you can remember that magnesium has a valency of 2 and hydroxide radical. The hydroxyl ion or hydroxide ion has a valency of 1. So therefore, when you interchange, 2 goes to hydroxide, and that's a radical. You have to bracket. and 1 goes to magnesium. Therefore, magnesium hydroxide is MgOH in brackets 2. You have to bracket the hydroxide because it is a radical. Very, very, very important. Let us move on and write the chemical formula for ammonium sulphate. Now remember the ammonium radical. These are two radicals here. This compound has two radicals. It's made up of ammonium radical and sulfate radical, or ammonium ion and sulfate ion. So when writing the chemical formula, remember to swap the valencies just like we've been doing, and ammonium radical or ion has a valency of +1. That is the oxidation number, and the sulfate ion has a valency of 2, oxidation number 2 minus 2. So when you swap the valencies, 1 goes to sulfate and 2 from the sulfate goes to ammonium, and ammonium sulfate is going to be represented as NH4 brackets 2 and SO4. You ignore the 1, you ignore 1 from ammonium. Very, very important. Most students do not know how to write the chemical formula of ammonium sulfate. Remember, it is you swap the valencies, and finally 1 goes to sulfate and 2 goes to ammonium. Therefore, ammonium sulfate is NH4 brackets 2SO4. Very, very important. Now let's move on and write the chemical formula for calcium hydroxide. Remember, calcium has a valency of 2. Hydroxide, we have already done that. It has a valency of 1. When you interchange the valencies, 1 goes to calcium and 2 goes to hydroxide. And remember, you have to bracket the hydroxide in this case. It is calcium OH brackets 2. Very, very important in that case. Having said that, I want to give you one more example, and let us write the chemical formula for iron 3 fluoride. Remember, iron has two valencies, 2 and 3. But I want us to write now the chemical formula for iron 3 fluoride. Remember, in that case, iron has a valency of 3. And fluoride from fluorine. Fluorine is an halogen, therefore it gains 1 electron to be stable. Therefore, the valency is 1. And the valency of iron 3 in that case is 3. So when you swap the valencies, 1 goes to iron and 3 goes to fluorine. Therefore, you ignore 1 and you retain the 3. So therefore, iron 3 fluoride is FeF3. Iron 3 fluoride. FeF3. That 3 comes from iron. That is the valency of iron 3. Very, very important. Now, students, I hope you have understood how to write chemical formula, how to swap the valencies in writing the chemical formula of a compound. This is a very important lesson in chemistry, because once you understand how to write the chemical formula, then you can be able to write a chemical equation using the correct chemical formula, and you can be able to balance the equations. Most of the equations in chemistry do not balance because you have used the wrong chemical formula. So if you find your equation is not balancing, go back to the chemical formula and check whether the chemical formula that you have given there is correct. Otherwise, for now, I want to wish you well, and ensure you subscribe to this channel, ensure you also click on the notification bell so that you can be notified when I upload a new video. And for now, up to that point, we've come to the end of the lesson. Bye bye.